Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
That was very robotic.
Sorry.
In another round of Disney remakes, it's Mulan versus Mulan. Yeah. The Mulaning.
Can I just say straight off the bat, like, we're doing these Disney remakes essentially in the order of, worst remake to best remake as chosen by, ratings of people online, etc.
Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah. I didn't think this was as bad as I expected it to be.
Yeah.
It's not a fantastic movie, but, I was expecting a disaster. I mean, the last one we watched was Pinocchio, which was awful.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was literally dreading watching this because I hadn't seen the Mulan remake yet. It's fine.
It's fine. It's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's
not as good as the original by a long shot.
Yeah.
But it's a decent movie.
Yeah, it wouldn't stand on its own though. If it wasn't Mulan, if they just made a generic similar story, because they're both based on the Ballad of Mulan.
Yeah.
Which is a story about a female who, to protect her younger brother and her elderly father, basically goes and joins the army in the placement, sort of very similar to, for those who don't know, the old Hunger Games.
Right, okay. I didn't know where you're going with that.
Yeah, and...
also similar to Monstrous Regiment, for anyone who's read that. Do you know what that is?
I'm assuming it's a Terry Pratchett book.
It is
by
a
the
Terry
smirk on your face.
It's a Terry Pratchett book about a young woman who pretends to be a man to go to war because her brother's already at war and she wants to find him and bring him back. And it's for the first half of it, it's her trying to hide the fact that she's a woman, and then she finds out that her entire regiment are women pretending to be men so they can go to war.
Which it also reminds me of that bit in Monty Python's The Life of Brian.
Right,
where they're going to stone people to death, but no women are allowed, and everybody in the crowd is a woman.
Yeah, yeah.
What it made me think of is a book that I read. I'm going to try and Google it.
What's that, Monstrous Regiment?
No, it wasn't Monstrous Regiment.
It's a good book, by the way. That's a standalone Discworld novel, as in the characters in it, the main characters are only really in that one, because a lot of Discworld is, the same characters appearing over and over again. So that's one you can read without reading any of the others.
So there was 2 books I read as a young adult by Tamoa Pierce. What? The First Adventure? Is that what it's really called?
What, The First Avenger?
No, Adventure.
Oh, First Adventure.
Alana, The First Adventure. By the Songs of the Lioness. Yeah, it's about a girl who pretends to be a boy, so she just runs. Her and her brother forge because her brother's going to get trained as a knight, and she's supposed to go for a house of waiting, and their fathers are drunk, so they just lie and forge his signature and change the paperwork so she can go become a knight, and he's I can't remember. I think he goes and joins what do you call it? I think he's a mage guild or something. I don't know. There's magic in the setting, but I think that's what he's gonna go do.
Right.
Become a wizard.
It also reminds me of a character called Ari the Orphan Boy, also known as Arya Stark in the Song of Ice and Fire series.
Yeah, so there's a lot of... I think the Ballad of Mulan has done a lot of influence on a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's the animated movie, the original 1998 original movie is fun, and it's got some comedic timing that, sorry, I had a mouth spasm, that still hold up today.
I think I was going to say controversial opinion. I don't think this is controversial. I think it's a very bold statement, though, and I said it while we were watching it. There is a moment in the 1998 Mulan movie that I still, to this day, think is one of the greatest moments in cinema history.
Okay.
I think it is one of the greatest tonal shifts ever achieved, and it is perfect. And it is when they're singing...
That they'll make a man out of me?
No, not I'll Make a Man of You. A Girl Worth Fighting For, which is a comedic song. Right. It's one of the comedy moments of the movie, is they're singing this song about, like, you know, it's this ragtag group of soldiers who have no skill, essentially, and have been, you know, bonding together, and then they're gonna go off and do some war, and they're, like, really playful about it. They're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go do some fighting. And they sing this song called A Girl Worth Fighting For, where they're just, like, joking around about, like, you know, what they really want is to impress women.
Yeah.
And they're like, I only want to fight to be impressive to women, and then, you know, have them swooning over me, and you know, and they sing about what their ideal woman is, whatever. And it's very lighthearted, and then they suddenly stop mid-sentence when they come upon a totally razed village, like, completely burned to the ground. Everyone is dead. They find the rest of the army slaughtered, and there's no more singing for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just this shift in a movie that had been kind of lighthearted and but still dealing with some darker themes or whatever, and then it just like turns on a coin in the middle of a comedic song.
Yeah. And
just the music just cuts, and the song just stops mid-sentence, and then it just goes to this bleak landscape. And they realize that the people that they were coming here to help have all been killed. They've just been slaughtered. And I think it is legitimately just like the best tonal shift I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, I know there are other movies that have pretty good tonal shifts, but like, it's just like from childhood it has stuck with me.
Right.
And I still, like, when I just every now and then I just think about it. I just think, like, Jesus, that was so well done. And it's one of my favorite things about that whole movie, I think. They don't I don't think they quite do it in the live action, because obviously there's no singing, but it's also, you know, kind of serious from the beginning to some extent.
Right, yeah.
But yeah.
You say it's serious, but it is...
It's more serious from the beginning,
yeah.
I say. Yeah.
It's interesting watching, because, like, there's, you know, going through any article about it, like, the remake was, well, not the remake, but the reimagining, the live action reimagining was, like, stuck in development hell.
Yeah.
The cast for it is insane.
It's ridiculous. Like, everything, I can understand how it ended up not doing well, because it seemed to just constantly have problems.
Yeah.
It was in development hell for like almost a decade, and then the release kept getting pushed back to the point that then it was, you know, the date they were going to release it, and in the end was going to be March 2020, and surprise, surprise, we had a pandemic. And then there was like a whole load of different controversies around it as well.
Yeah.
Also weird, I know that this is not really related to anything, but weird that a part of it not being successful was the COVID-19 pandemic, and their lead actress is from Wuhan.
Right, yeah.
It's just an odd coincidence. It feels like a cursed production for like a whole number of reasons. But it's bizarre, because it was supposed to be released in 2018.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
And then it was pushed back. I'll go to my trivia notes for it. So it was, the original release date was November 2018, but they wanted to spend more time on production, which is a good reason to push something back. And then it was going to be released in December 2019, but because Disney owns Star Wars and they wanted to release Rise of Skywalker, and they wanted that to be their prominent Christmas release, they pushed back the release of Mulan till 2020, because they were, you know, they thought Rise of Skywalker would be a more successful film.
Yeah.
And then They did have their premiere in Hollywood on March 9th, 2020, and then it was going to get a large theatrical release worldwide later in March 2020.
Oh no.
And then there was a pandemic, so it got pushed back till September, and then a lot of places were still in lockdowns or had, cinemas were still closed. So it didn't get a theatrical release in the States, which is where the biggest audience would be. It did get a theatrical release in some countries where theaters had reopened, but other than that, it was released on Disney Plus. And there was even a controversy around that because that was the first film that they decided to do you have to pay extra to watch this one film kind of release.
Yeah.
So people pushed back against that. So it would have made less money for that. And then also, I haven't even taken notes on this because it's ridiculous. I just have the Wikipedia open. So the Wikipedia section for Mulan 2020 has an entire controversies section on it. So first of all, they filmed a lot of it in a part of China where human rights abuses were taking place.
Oh no.
Xinjiang, and people wanted to boycott the movie based on that. And then there was a lot of controversy around the fact that although the cast are largely people who are Chinese or of Chinese descent or are from other Asian countries, there wasn't a lot of representation within the production team.
Yeah,
including,
didn't notice that.
Yeah, including their director, who did you recognize their director's name?
Niki something.
Yeah, Niki something. That's her name. Do you know Niki Caro?
Caro.
Do you know what else she's directed?
No.
Well, her most famous film that she's directed is Whale Riders. She's from Wellington.
Interesting.
So so obviously not Chinese.
Yeah.
But a lot of the crew were not Chinese or of Chinese descent, and people took issue with that. There was a huge uproar when they announced that they were not going to have the character of Li Shang in the movie.
Yeah.
Because that he's a love interest of Mulan and also her commanding officer, and he's a very important character in the original.
Yeah.
The reason they removed him was in response to the Me Too movement. Because they thought that it would look bad
I can get
having her in a relationship with her commanding officer.
Yeah.
And then people, particularly the queer community, were really upset that Li Shang was not going to be included because he's considered to be a bisexual icon.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly attracted to Mulan as a man and then attracted to Mulan as a woman.
Yeah.
So they had to be like, no, we have a different character who's going to be her love interest. He's just one of her equals, and then the commanding officer is separate. But people still were not happy about it. And then the lead actress made a Instagram post, I think, or some kind of social media post where she said that she supported the police in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I
did read that. I was like, oh no.
And I think that was around the time the film was supposed to come out.
Yeah.
So, so there's a whole load of shit around it that made it, that, hindered it from doing well. And I think, without all of that garbage, because I think it was, originally supposed to start production in 2010 or something.
Yeah, it was, that's a long time.
A lot of production hell before it even got to the point where it was being delayed for releases for multiple reasons. None of it could have helped. And definitely didn't help the public opinion. So I think it was one of those movies that people were going to not like before it even came out. Yeah. Which is a shame because, it could have been really good, and it's not necessarily a bad film.
Yeah.
So it's
better
kept shooting itself in the foot.
It's better than The Great Wall, I can tell you that much.
I haven't seen that and I don't want to.
That's awful. That's an awful movie. The main difference to me, and this is what I took away from watching both those movies in a row, which we just did, is you sort of have the same beats. It's the it's starting off, and you get introduced to the characters, and then you realize that China's under attack from basically like this pseudo Mongolian raiders. And then goes to the decree, and then Mulan deciding to protect her father and her family and going and joining the army, and then they have the I'm going to make a man out of you montage, which is like the best part of the movie and the bit that everyone remembers because the song's so catchy, and the light, like all the imagery.
Disappointed they didn't sing it they kept putting in the musical stings from different songs throughout it, but without playing the actual or having actual singing.
Yeah, it was like the original's great because it's showing that like a woman can do what men can do, given the right motivation, the right dedication, which is really important these days with more females joining military service. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy about that. Some of it justified, some of it not. And, you go through this whole thing, and before they get to, like you said, that moment of like, oh yeah, we're going to be heroes for China and blah, blah, blah. And then they realize, oh shit, we're like undertrained, and, we're going to go fight somebody who's just like ruining the entire border. The main difference to me, which I think I said out loud while we were watching the 2021, because as we discussed in other episodes, we do the original and then the remake, which was really important to me when we came to the Old Boy episode.
Yeah.
Because that would have been terrible to watch the remake first. It's the theatrical wushu stuff bugged the shit out of me. It really bugged me in the Great Wall movie, but it bugged me in this because it was just like, oh, they can't just be like an actual threat to China, like based on historical stuff. No, they have to also have like demon magic helping them. And I was just like I said repetitively when we were watching the original, I'm like, why is he a vampire? Because he's got the pointy teeth and the black eyes, and he's got the like bird familiar, and seems to be like, again, sort of like superhuman in a way. And then when I was like, oh cool, they're gonna like make a like live action, like this is gonna be like brutal with like real decent martial arts in it, and I'm like, no, that's all wire work and like dudes running up like straight buildings. And
yeah, I don't understand that, but there is a lot of real martial arts.
Like, don't get me wrong, those people work really hard. I'm not shitting on any way on the martial arts credit that goes into it. I'm just saying like it was unnecessary.
Because they specifically looked for actors who had martial arts backgrounds, including the woman who plays Mulan, because they wanted them to be able to actually do martial arts and to be doing their own stunts in terms of the fighting and things. Yeah.
I think the biggest difference, because you're talking about characters, would be the Emperor.
Yeah, the Emperor is quite different.
Yeah. So the Emperor in the original is just like some, regular, like, I'm a royalty, it was handed down, blah, 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 I'm doing the best. Like, it was really interesting having that, like, saying of him being like, yeah, but, like, we're losing territory, yeah, but what about people? Like, are people okay? No, they're getting slaughtered. Oh, well, we're going to do something about the people getting slaughtered. Who cares about the gold going missing? We can always dig up more or trade for more, but, like, we're getting massacred, like the people are getting suffering out there. So that was good. But yeah, having this like old man, big, long beard, traditional Chinese stereotype of like ancient Chinese, what's the word? Mysticism, sort of like, I am the emperor, no one can touch me, no one can, speak before me, and everyone has to bow and that sort of thing. And then it's like Jet Li playing him in the other one, and he can catch arrows in midair. And I was just like, okay, there's a little bit of a difference here.
Jet Li turned down the role, by the way, and then his daughters were like, you need to do this. They were like, this movie is going to be important in terms of showing Chinese culture to wider audiences. And
I also thought it was interesting hearing Donnie Yen, who's very famous, was in the martial arts movie sort of genre.
You say that like Jet Li isn't.
Yeah. Well, Jet Li, I think Jet Li's probably more famous in the
Western,
West, where
yeah.
you could just point him out and be like, oh, that's Jet Li.
Yeah.
And like Donnie Yen's movies are absolutely fantastic. But again, like he didn't play, like you said, when getting rid of the character, and like basically splitting him up into, you know, here's the commander, here's also like the guy that she's like rivalry, will they, won't they rivalry.
Yeah.
Didn't let him like unleash and like.
I mean, he did when they first like were getting ready to train, and he was like, you know, the "I'll make a man out of you" sequence. Essentially, he just did some cool tricks, and I was like, I mean, I think he looks very cool doing this, but he's not actually training them. He's just like
showing off.
This is what you'll do someday, and then just like showing off doing some cool martial arts shit. While they're like, whoa, dude.
Like I said, like if you're gonna have really high-end martial artists in your movie, like let them do it, like you know, unleash the beast. Like I, you know, it was just watching it going, oh cool, when are they going to have their moment? Oh, they don't get one. It's all, you know. And
what did you think of the martial arts in the animated one?
It's fine, like.
Because they did have, for Li Shang and for Mulan, they did have martial arts models for them. One of which was Jackie Chan.
Yeah. And
the other was Gong Li, who plays the weird mystical witch lady in the remake.
Right. I think we're currently rewatching, in real life, we're currently rewatching Avatar.
Rewatching?
Well, sorry, for me, I'm rewatching.
Well, I had seen some of the
original
Last Airbender, but we're watching Korra at the moment, which I've never seen.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen past season 1. The moment where she's like practicing her like form next to the water, my mind instantly was like, oh, the water's going to move. Because we've been watching so much Avatar that like anytime people are near water and doing martial arts, I'm assuming they're going to like start waterbending.
Yeah.
But that's again because the, you know, spoilers, don't want any spoilers for the live action Netflix thing that's coming out soon. But then the more I hear about it, the less I want to watch it. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. We'll do the same thing we did with other shows, which we'll watch the pilot and be like, do you want to continue watching?
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. But I think getting more you know, stories that are from foreign cultures into the zeitgeist of current media is
foreign cultures, he says. To Americans, you are a foreign culture.
Yeah, and that's why they listen to our podcast. You can find our website, ittakes2.co.nz. It's in the footnotes. What were you going to say, sorry?
Just say different cultures.
Yeah,
foreign culture is every, like...
Yeah.
For you, American sitcoms are foreign culture. Like, that's...
I don't know, they're kind of within the zeitgeist of our culture.
But they're not. They're still foreign culture. You're taking in a culture from a foreign country by watching American shows.
Which is always funny to me because I've just fallen into the same trap that I used to laugh at when I ever went looking through when I was heavily collecting DVDs and stuff. Because there's always like one foreign section that's got non-English titles in it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, which of these movies were, other than Lord of the Rings and a couple of others, which others aren't foreign? Because none of these are made in New Zealand.
Well, Mulan is.
Yeah,
so.
Some of it is, yeah. And I can pick it out immediately.
Yeah, that was so funny because on the iMDb page it says that there's only one scene that's filmed in New Zealand, but you were like, this is clearly New Zealand. And then when I looked further into it, I was like, oh there's a whole load of it. Like, I think actually the majority of it is filmed in New Zealand. It's only like sequences that are in like villages and things are filmed in, you know, actual Chinese villages. I think most of the just general outdoor scenes are in fact New Zealand. Which happens.
It's
you watch an Alien movie from recent years and you're in Milford Sound.
Don't talk to me about Alien Covenant. What an awful movie. Just again, like it does. So now that Alien Covenant is on my brain, it's because there was a lot of controversy about that movie as well, because of the weird marketing system they did. Looping it back to what you were saying earlier about, delays and development hell. Because for those who don't know, you had to watch a bunch of other media. I think they were released on YouTube.
Yeah, there was I think that was for Prometheus though, was it, rather than Covenant?
No, it was Covenant.
I thought it was for Prometheus, because there was James Franco stuff and he dies 2 minutes into Prometheus.
There's Covenant.
Wasn't that Prometheus?
Yeah, Prometheus is the first one where they go to the...
I know what Prometheus was, but I thought James Franco was in Prometheus.
No, he's in Covenant. Yeah, he's the captain of the ship and literally...
combined them in my head.
Literally dies in the first 2 seconds of the movie.
Yeah, no, I remember that happening, but I thought it happened in Prometheus, not in Covenant.
No. I like the first Alien, but I think James Cameron did a better job than Ridley Scott did. But yeah, again, weird choices being made. And it's a shame because, with the current controversy in regards to what's happening with which I won't name, the former Mandalorian star, it's.
I was going to make a joke and say Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah.
Who also is in.
It's also what happened with the live action Cowboy Bebop stuff. It's cool, you're a celebrity. That doesn't make your opinion more valid than anybody else's. Just keep it to your... if you're going to say something controversial, maybe think about it. Maybe write it down and then, leave it for a day and then go and read it and be I don't want to read this. Because she's currently suing and backed by the CEO of X.
Just for clarification, it's not Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah.
It's not Ming-Na Wen.
But
who is in both Mulan movies. I like her. Yeah.
But, weird.
Don't like this other person.
Yeah.
Who's remains nameless.
Yeah. It's just it's a weird thing. And it really it can put off people from, enjoying something that you worked other people. That's the thing that Harris Out brought up when when they were talking about future movies that probably won't do well. And the controversy around the Flash's star, and Patrick said it's not fair because there's a lot of other people that put a lot of work in, and they're the ones that are going to suffer, not the main star of the movie. And I hadn't even thought about that out loud before. When I say out loud, I mean in my head, but actively thinking about it. There are 1,000 thoughts that go through my brain every day that I tend to ignore. And it can, because you imagine the people on the production team for a movie that's was, what did you say, 2010? Yeah,
that this was Mulan was originally supposed to be. Yeah, I think it was 2010. It was originally.
So that's production team going through hell for 10 years to get a movie out. It's a difficult, weird system that produces movies, and it's I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times more. Everybody has access to technology these days. Well, I say everybody. I say people who are capable of listening to this podcast right now have the capability of doing stuff themselves. There's a lot of complaints about movies not being made for you, and do it yourself. You can get somebody who can put some words on paper, or more likely on a keyboard, to write a script. There'll be people out there who understand photography, which can do cinematography because the things are very,
I think this is about the 4th episode where you've just told people to go make their own movies.
Yeah.
It just
it's on my brain because we both have friends who are not struggling actors, but actors struggling to find placement because
jobbing actors.
Yeah. jobbing.
I think a lot of, because I looked through the past credits of several people in the Mulan cast, and a lot of them are jobbing actors, are people who are in single episodes of different things and have been doing it for 30, 40 years, and are not household names by any manner of means, you know.
But I did pick somebody out, didn't I? That was funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
One of the main group of the soldiers of the Ling is Jimmy Wong, who I watch weekly because he has a MTG YouTube channel, which I thought was hilarious. I was just like, wait a second, and then
he's like, I know him.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. I think they did a really good job, other than the criticism that I've pre-laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's hard to say because I'm not one, but I think little girls need heroes they can relate to.
Yeah.
Not everybody can go, see Son Goku and go, that's me. Or see Saitama and go, that's me. That's a very boy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like, oh, yeah, anybody who watched Dragon Ball Z, pretended to power up and throw a Kamehameha around. And I think it's interesting, but then at the same time, the weirdness that comes out because of, like, people standing up and saying, oh, no, your little blonde, blue-eyed white girl can't dress up like Moana because it's cultural theft. And we're creating a system where it stops people from being able to enjoy things based on other people's bias. And I don't think that's fair on children. Mm-hmm. To be like, no, you're not allowed to do that because you have to have this guilt thing that inherited from us, the generation before you and the generation before you. And it's just like, no, let children be children. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Pocahontas dress as a kid.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was badass.
Yeah, she is.
I was not, because I think my parents will remember this and they will feel upset about it probably. My parents went to the trouble of getting me for Christmas a dress that I believe was Aurora from Sleeping Beauty, and I was like, I don't even like Sleeping Beauty, and refused to wear it. And I think they had like gotten my uncle in the States to like line up in a Disney shop because you couldn't get them in Ireland.
Was that a video? Was it on video?
I don't think that, like, me getting the rest of the video, I don't think you've seen any video, but
there was
a video, because my dad made me, when I had calmed down and was nicer later on, because I think my mom was really upset about it. My dad did take video where he got me to wear the dress and be like, see, it's fine, it's still a nice thing, so that he could show my mom that, like, I did put it on. But at the time I was like just totally dismissive of it. I was like, I don't care about this. So I was not a kid who was into dresses at all, and I was not into most Disney princesses. But I thought Pocahontas was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because she was tough and she stood up for herself and she like wanted to be her own person and stuff. Yeah. And that's what Mulan is as well.
And yeah, it's one of those stories that, it's about female empowerment. It's about showing that given, like I said, motivation, women are as dedicated to their family and their country as men who think that, it's the masculine thing to go off and die for honor. Mm.
It's interesting to me the choices they made in the remake, because obviously you have a lot of magic and stuff that isn't in the original. I mean, there's magic in the original because there's like the ancestors and all this stuff.
And Mushu.
There are things that happen in the remake that like on the surface you look at them and go like, this is ridiculous. Why did you do this? But then like, if you have watched the original Mulan enough and analyzed it and thought about like all the decisions that were made with like minor details in it, all or most, if not all, of the things that come across as kind of weird in the remake are taking little subtleties about the original and making them more obvious.
Can you give us an example, please?
Yeah. I can give you several examples.
Good.
So the whole weird magic shit, right? That she's using chi, and when she uses chi, she's basically got like avatar powers. Not without the bending, but you know what I mean. Like she's able to be stronger and whatever.
Yeah, that's when the wushu, the theatrical wushu stuff comes out. Yeah,
and it's like, why is this? And you have this opposing force where, you know, instead of just having like a hawk, they've got a woman who's a witch who can do all this magic stuff because she's got super powerful chi.
Yeah.
And including transforming into different creatures. And you have her and Mulan face off, and while Mulan is still pretending to be a man, and then she reveals to Mulan that, like, as you lie about who you are, when you're deceiving, you can't unleash your chi, and she's like, you clearly have powerful chi.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Mulan reveals herself to be a woman, and then she's able to unlock that when she's finally being truthful to herself and doing that. In the original, Mulan is performing at all times.
Yeah.
So as Mulan, before you know, at the beginning of the movie when she's doing the matchmaker stuff and all that, she is uncomfortable and not able to do things properly because she's trying to perform and be this person that, you know, the expectations on her demand her to be.
Yeah.
Which is not who she is, and that's what her whole, you know, I Want song is about. Is about it, you know, it's a reflection. It's about wanting to be seen for who she actually is, as opposed to who society wants her to be. And she said, you know, when will my reflection show who I am inside? When she goes to war, or when she goes off and takes her father's place, she's still performing. She's taking Mushu's advice. She's watching the other guys, and she's trying to be what people expect a man to be.
Yeah.
And her defining moment where she shows off how powerful she is and how she can do this stuff is, from the beginning of the movie, we see that she's intelligent and she's creative and she thinks laterally.
Yeah.
She puts all those things away when she's performing.
Yeah.
And it's when you get to the point where she's told to go home and then she looks at this task that they've been told to do that everyone thinks is impossible, which is while wearing these heavy medallions on your arms, climb up to the top of this pole and remove an arrow.
Yeah.
And it's when Mulan stops the performance and just goes and just becomes Mulan and is honest to herself about who she is and goes, no, I'm going to think laterally.
Yeah.
That's when she's able to achieve that, and then from that moment on, she's able to be strong. And even there's the parallel in battle where, you know, in that large battle in the original, it's Mulan. You know, they're all thinking straightforward and going, we got to shoot this thing at this person, and she's the one who thinks, no, there's another way to do this.
Yeah.
And it's something that no one else is thinking of because she's got a brain that works differently. She's got this creative mind that is not appreciated, that she's able to stop the people or the Huns who are coming at them. And in the remake, it's because she's, you know, been true to herself and admitted who she is, that she's able to unlock her chi and then defeat all these people. And then the other...
Via Avalanche, which is pretty badass. Both movies.
By Avalanche in both movies. Yeah. And then the other example, which I pointed out when we were watching it, is because you were like, what the hell? Is in, rather than having Mushu, she has, every now and then there's a phoenix falling around, because in the remake, the phoenix is the family's protector or whatever. She does see it, I think, once or twice, but other than that, it's kind of just there as symbolism and she's not seeing it. And there's this moment when she's fighting Bori Khan head on, that the phoenix rises up behind her and opens out its wings, and she then is, it's showing us in very obvious terms, she is the phoenix, she is the protector, and then she is able to do, you know, the shit she needs to do to defeat him. And in the original, there's the reason she's got Mushu with her is because Mushu is supposed to wake up the great dragon, who is the protector of the family, and he can't wake him up. But the reason he can't wake him up is because Mulan is the dragon. And that is, like, the fantastic sequence towards the beginning of the movie, you know, after she's brought dishonor on her family for But at the matchmaker, and then brought dishonor on her family by trying to stop her father from going to war. And she's worrying about her family and how to look after them, and she's sitting on the dragon statue. And then lightning strikes, and she has that moment where without saying anything, she's decided what she's going to do.
Yeah.
And then throughout there's a whole montage sequence of her, cutting her hair and getting her father's armor and all this. Every time the dragon's in it. The dragon's on the hilt of the sword, the dragon's on the handle of the doors that she opens. Every shot where she's doing something to become the protector of her family, the dragon is present, and it flashes between that and the stone dragon, and then the end of the sequence is the stone dragon's eyes lighting up, and then her grandmother waking up and realizing that Mulan is gone.
Yeah.
Because the spirit of the dragon is in her, and she is the protector of the family. And it's fantastic sequence, and it's just so well done. But subtle enough that people don't realise that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And they think just Mushu broke the statue, so the dragon is gone. And it's like, no, the Mushu couldn't wake up the dragon because the dragon was already in Mulan.
Yeah.
And in the remake, it's like, here is the phoenix, he's in Mulan now. And it's like, okay, I get it. But I also understand why they made it less subtle, because people don't appreciate it in the original, especially if you're watching it once. If it's your first time watching Mulan, you're not noticing that the symbolism there and the fact that she has taken on that role.
Yeah.
It's a subtlety that, like, when you watch it a few times, you're like, oh my god, this is well done. Because the original film is well done. It's fantastic. I think it's a really great film. But like that, there's a lot of subtleties in it that are underappreciated. And in the remake, they have just, like, they're just like hitting you on the head with a hammer.
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, it's not a bad movie, it's just not a good movie.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, like, the love and craft that went into the original Disney movie is just a little bit better in every aspect.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Like, there are some worse ones, and they'll be coming up shortly, but it's just interesting. Like, I understand when you're a monopoly like Disney is, that you're trying to keep all your IPs very close to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like, some decisions were made out of, oh yeah, that'll make money, and that was like the last conscious thought put into it.
Yeah, I think they did try. Like, I think the people making the film were trying. Disney as a corporation is garbage.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. But
we've seen in the recent time that every production company is garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
Morally garbage.
Well, every large, most large, A24, I think, is doing a good job. Also, they were one of the only production companies that were getting stuff made during the writers' strikes and the actors' strikes, because they were actually adhering to the requirements laid out by the people striking. So they were able to apply and get their works going because they were meeting all the conditions that they needed to.
Yeah.
Where the big studios are going, no, I need to be able to fly my private jet everywhere, and I can't pay any actors.
Yeah, I'm going to get the council who are on our side because we pay so much money to cut down the trees that the strikers are using for cover, and then in
the middle of a California summer.
Yeah, and then just the big controversy about it. Well, technically they do cut them every year. It's just very interesting that they were asked to cut them several months earlier.
And cut them back more than they should be doing, and...
Was it funny that it was like watching interviews with like independent arborists?
Mm-hmm.
Like, see if this was like...
Tree law is fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially in the States. I've seen a little bit of it here because people were talking about online about their landlords wanting to cut down Pohutukawas and stuff like that.
It's interesting because like it not here but in the other city close by, Wineries Council was rolled into Lower Hutt's council, and because most of the council members were from Lower Hutt, they pretty much didn't give a crap about Wainu Armada, and they had a similar thing where their trees, which were obviously trimmed by professionals, Not saying the people who did trim them weren't professionals. I'm saying they were professionals that, like, part of their, like, ongoing 12-year cycle would be paid by the council to go and trim all the trees so they didn't grow into the power lines. And then, the difference, like, made social media and then the regular media of when the Lower Hutt City Council were like, oh, we're getting complaints that the trees haven't been trimmed. Let's just go, like, butcher the shit out of them. So you like these nice streets, which, like, I appreciate because there's very few streets these days because we're so committed to space and cramming as many houses onto a property area as possible. You don't get a lot of wide streets that can accumulate parking on both sides plus have 2 lanes, unlike a lot of Wellington where it's like, oh, cool, you've parked on both sides of the street. You cannot fit a normal car through there anymore. You've, like, literally shut the road down.
I still remember being on a bus that got stuck because someone parked on the opposite side of the street to all the other cars parked. Yeah. And the bus was like, well, I can't get past these cars. Yeah. So it took me like an hour longer to get where I was going or something. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Where was I going? Trees. Yeah. So, it can affect, like, just the physical, I was going to say vibe, but I guess that's the right word. The vibe of the neighborhood when you've got these beautiful trees and then you come home from work or whatever and then they're, like,
gone.
Well, not gone, but just
destroyed.
Like, they're like broccoli that you've got to, like, cut the top off of, so you've only just got a stalk sticking out of the ground and you're like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're lucky in Wellington to have so much green space.
Yeah, it's because we're surrounded by hills and it's physically impossible to build
but
houses
even in areas where it's not as hilly, that there is like dedicated green space. I really appreciate it because there's a lot of places in the world where that's not possible.
A mutual friend was in Wellington recently from Ireland, and he was took him around Wellington for a couple of days, and he was just like, man, this is, like, so good because if you're in Dublin and cool, I'm going to go for like a bushwalk and go into, like,
there's no such thing as a bushwalk in Dublin.
There
are parks
hours.
Though. There's parks around Dublin. That are quite nice, but nothing like here where there's just like there's literally like we can walk 2 streets over in either direction and we're in bushland essentially, like in little sections of it, but still.
Wouldn't change it for a world.
No. And also, if you walk like half an hour in several directions, you end up at the sea, which is also nice.
I think that there is a nice balance here. Like, obviously places like, big cities are impressive when you come from an area where you're like, cool, there's the sea on one side and there's the hills on the other with green on it. Like, to be, sitting there and looking at 360 degrees, like, I've seen a little bit of it going to some of the coasts in Australia where you're like, oh, cool, there is just, like, silver in one direction and silver in the other direction and the sea there and then, like, nothing because, like, suburbs and then desert. Well, not desert, but, like...
A lot of our listeners are people who are living in landlocked spaces. Yeah. Where you have to drive for multiple days, potentially, to see the sea. You should visit somewhere that's got sea.
I can see it from our balcony.
if you're able to.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. It's traveling that far is difficult sometimes or expensive depending on mode of transport. I really appreciate it because I have lived. The only place I ever lived that was landlocked really was Toronto, and that's on a big lake, so there's still like a body of water.
Yeah.
I don't think I could live somewhere that's totally landlocked. It would just freak me out. It would freak me out even just being somewhere where the only water around is a big lake.
Yeah.
I like being near the sea. It's nice.
Does make the weather a little bit more temperate as well.
Yeah, true.
Windy here in Wellington, but it's still temperate.
Yeah.
Even though the amount of times on this podcast I've complained about literally my brain melting.
It's not too bad today. I was out and I'm wearing like quite a summery outfit, and I went out and I was like, oh, we've got some strong southerlies today. Yeah. It is cold. Yeah. The sun is shining, but it's cold.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the movies.
We've got a nice tangent there. You said you had like several pages of trivia.
Yeah.
You want to touch on some stuff?
We can, yeah. There's nothing else you want to talk about, or you want to cycle back afterwards?
I'll interrupt as usual if I find any subjects that spark some neurons together.
Fair enough. This is a bit I wanted to talk about, and we definitely have listeners who can correct me on this information. Because this is something that was in iMDb trivia, and also I have seen in other places online before, I think in particular on Tumblr, being discussed. So you will have noticed in the remake, they pronounce her family name as Hua, as opposed to Fa. That is the difference between the Cantonese and Mandarin pronunciations of her name.
Okay.
So it should be pronounced Hua, I think, but in Cantonese it's pronounced Fa, so it should be Fa Mulan. But Hua means flower, and Ping, which is what she uses as her fake name in the animated version, Hua Ping means flower vase, which is also a slang term used to describe an effeminate or gay man.
Interesting.
So essentially the joke is, allegedly, I don't know whether this was the intention of Disney or not in the original, but the potential interpretation is that the joke is when Li Shang asks her what her name is, she's like, my name is Gay Man. And he's like, oh, all right. Oh, okay. And I think that's very funny. But obviously she goes by Hua Jun, I think, in the remake. Hua Jun. You've already forgotten?
I wasn't really paying attention, so...
And I don't know what that means, anyway, so irrelevant. Jackie Chan, as I already mentioned, he's the martial arts model for Li Shang. He also voices Li Shang in the Chinese release of Mulan. And because he's a successful singer in Asia, he did a music video of I'll Make a Man Out of You, which was quite popular. Christina Aguilera, as we mentioned, is in the credits of both movies singing songs. So she sings a version of Reflection that's in the credits. But it was the first song that she released in the USA, was her cover of her version of Reflection. So the film Mulan is credited with launching Christina Aguilera's career.
My mind is... So because she did that before she did, like, Dirty.
Yeah. So because she had been in the Mickey Mouse Club.
That's right.
So she was one of that group. So she was already associated with Disney. And then her first, like, solo release was Reflection. Because the song was received so well, that's how she got a recording contract.
Interesting.
She didn't have a recording contract before Mulan.
The voice of a generation.
Harvey Fierstein, who comes up quite a lot in our podcast, we've mentioned him a few times. So he's in the original Mulan. He plays Hsiao, and he originally turned it down because he had really strong feelings about giving more opportunities in Hollywood to Asian actors, and he didn't want to play a Chinese character. And he would only accept it when he had been assured by the producers that a lot of Asian actors were being cast in lead roles, which is accurate. Originally, the original concept was for a animated short called China Doll, which was about an oppressed Chinese girl who was whisked away by a British Prince Charming to live in the West and be happy.
Gross.
And then a consultant at Disney, who is Robert D. Souci. I've probably butchered that name, but he suggested to them that they make an adaptation of the Song of Fa Mulan, and they combined the two projects and ended up with the movie that they made. It's the only... This is a stupid way to phrase this. It says it's the only Disney animated film to use the phrase cross-dresser. Of course it is. Why else would they... Where would they need to use it in other ones? But because they use the term cross-dresser, they almost had to change the rating of the movie to PG.
Wow.
Because because they were like, you can't say cross-dresser in a kids movie. I like how that implies that they were fine with like all of the murders that like all of the deaths that happen in it.
Can I point out something that I noticed?
What?
The remake has like zero blood in it.
Mm.
It is the most violent movie where no one gets injured.
Yeah.
It's something that came up in the thousands of thoughts I ignore per day when we were watching Avatar, and I was like, oh yeah, that's because it's like aimed at a kids show, and it's like, you know, going through like some of the other stuff I've watched, and I'm like, no, you were just watching stuff that was like aimed at when you were watching it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not like some of the stuff that's coming out now, which is like ultra violence. Yeah, I found it really weird. It was a little bit off-putting, honestly. Like, I noticed it, you know, when people were getting killed, and I was like, hang on a second, I don't think I've seen a single drop of blood in this entire movie. That's a weird choice they've made, but then again, I guess it's like helping their rating so that more people can see it.
Yeah. I'm going to skip down my list to a related fact from the original. I'm going to read this as it's written because I just think the phrasing of it is very funny. Mulan is, by far, the Disney character, hero or villain, with the highest body count ever. The production team had drawn 2,000 Hun soldiers during the Hun's attack sequence, along with 2,000 horses. Only 6 Huns survived the avalanche, and only one of them is killed later, which makes Mulan's final body count 3,994. Not counting Shan Yu, who was technically killed by Mushu rather than Mulan herself. She literally killed like almost 4,000.
Was it in Ralph Breaks the Internet?
What, that she killed everyone?
No, that like they go and one of the characters goes and speaks with all the Disney princesses.
Yeah.
And it isn't. Was Mulan? I don't think Mulan was Mulan.
Mulan is in there,
and she's speaking.
She's voiced by Ming-Na Wen still, and
she speaks in. Which one would they take the piss out of and say they don't understand?
Merida with the Scottish accent.
Brave. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I just assumed that it was like that moment where she was actually just speaking in her native tongue, which makes way more sense.
No, she's still speaking in English.
Just don't understand the
Scottish accent.
Thick Scottish accent.
Yeah. There is a fact that includes Merida from Brave in here, so we'll skip to that one next. Here we go. There's so many facts.
I'm setting you up.
Good segues. So Mulan was the first Disney princess to not have a kiss in her movie. But the others that followed that are Merida from Brave and Moana from Moana. Also Elsa, who's not technically counted as a Disney princess, but she also doesn't kiss anyone. But all 3 of those do not have love interests. So Mulan is the only Disney princess to have a love interest but not kiss him. Which is it's interesting. So she's the only Disney princess to not kiss her love interest in all the movies. She's also one of 2 Disney princesses to wear pants.
What was the other one?
Jasmine in Aladdin.
I guess so, yeah.
She wears pants. Yeah. But every other Disney princess wears skirts and dresses exclusively.
Makes sense.
Isn't that weird? But even on that fact, Mulan, like, for 90% of the movie, I think, or at least 80% of the movie, is wearing her training gear or her battle armor.
Yeah.
And yet, in all promotional stuff and every Disney princess thing, she's wearing dresses.
Weird. I am going to segue here into one thing that I will take away that it was really good. The costumes in the 2020 movie are absolutely fantastic.
Really good, yep.
Everything about it was great, except for, I think Mulan's outfit was a weird choice.
Which one?
When she emerges out of her from a man to a woman and all she does is just like take off the armor that protects her vital organs.
Yeah.
And it did have like a moment of...
It was stifling her chi or something, I don't know.
It was like...
It's like, you didn't need to do this.
It's like when you're a caster in D&D and you're wearing armor and therefore you can't cast magic.
Yeah, that's true, you can't, that's true.
But
that is how it works in D&D.
Why did she keep it on her thighs?
I don't know. It was a weird... Well, I think the idea was that it had been cut, right? So she took it off because it had been broken. But, like, it still would have been better on her than... broken than it was without having any armor on.
See, because what I thought happened was the... what's it called? The bundle... Not bundling. That's not the word.
Or her, like, binding?
Her
underneath?
binding, yeah, was what stops the... Because she's wearing, like, a leather pad plus binding. And
so the armor had been cut through, but the binding stopped the thing from actually killing her.
Yeah.
I thought the binding was done really well.
Yeah.
And even, like, there's a sequence where... Because she's using, I think, leather as a binder, like a strip of leather or something that was wrapped around her multiple times. And... you know, she volunteers for night watch so that she's not undressing at the same time as the men, which makes more sense than the original. They're all in one big tent, like sharing one sleeping space, and they line up and go for showers together, and she's like, oh shit. And that makes more sense to me than how it's done in the original. But, yeah, so she volunteers to be the night guard so that then everyone's already asleep when she goes in, and she takes off this binder and, like, visibly is, like, so relieved from removing it. And I was like, yeah, that feels realistic. Yeah. That feels accurate.
Yeah. Everything else was really good, costume-wise. It's just, for some reason that her armor after she emerges... back as who she's truly meant to be was just like, I was like, okay, you could have just like make it a point of the fact that she tries to put her armor on but it's broken and have some sort of like V-neck armor thing going on. But instead it was just like, no, she's just going to take the like armored top off but still keep the pant part.
And she's going to take the armored top off right before she goes out and fights
like the doesn't it was bizarre to me, that's all. I really love laminated armor as a concept because obviously, for those who don't know, it was very cheap to produce, so you could produce it on a large scale. You weren't relying on singular pieces having really, really high purity, because then if you've got a weak point in a chest piece or a helmet, that's the point that it can break. Or not, when you're... Because they all start off as, like, reasonably flat pieces, and then it's a special hammering technique where you have, like, basically inverted domes, and you, like, hammer it so it all forms to a chest shape from being flat. And the same with helmets. So laminated armor, if you picture ancient Roman soldiers, you picture samurai, and again in this movie the laminated armor is they're small pieces of metal that are like sewn next to each other. And it is really effective because you're getting more protection. It doesn't matter if one piece breaks, you're still getting protection at like 95% more. Obviously if it's closer to where it's attached to the main main sort of harness point, you can get some damage that way. But I really enjoyed the costuming, and I think it was less fantasy costuming than I was than other. Again, I'm bringing up that horrible movie like Great Wall. Like, was less fantasy and more like based in some form of reality. I think Gladiator did a really good job. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, but that's
Lord of the Rings set the bar way too high. The Weta did work on Mulan. Yeah. Which makes sense because it was, made in New Zealand mostly.
What I find really cool, I don't think we did see some. The 3D printed armor that's coming out. For those who don't know, obviously most people understand how 3D printing works. It's either a UV cured resin in a vat, or the other way is extruded material onto a flat surface.
I don't think most people understand that, but
okay.
I think that's a niche that you are in.
So it's one of my special interests. So there are two main types of 3D printing that are accessible. There are other types, including this new metal stuff and there's one carbon fiber that's coming out as well. not obviously, you know, you wouldn't have that in your home because it'd be very expensive unless you're working in some sort of manufacturing side gig. But the one that I found really interesting is they have it so it can be printed into like a mesh material.
Yeah.
And there are so many people who do cosplays of like
Yeah.
some ridiculous stuff, like anything from like Monster Hunter, that kind like
even people who do like Ren fairs and medieval things and stuff.
having seen like people make like, because like if you were gonna like say you're like, oh cool, I want to get into, you know, Ren fairs or like historical reenactment. It's like cool. The most investment you're going to do is making it into what you're going to be wearing on the day.
Yeah.
Versus being able to go, cool, here's someone who's STL that I'm going to pay, you know, a couple of bucks for, set up the material and be able to print yourself like
chainmail.
Not chainmail, but like scale mail and things like that. But like the fantasy stuff's crazy because it's like. For the Monster Hunter, because there's a huge group of people that are super. What was the movie about the orchestra conductor?
Tar.
She ends up being the conductor for the live performances of music for Monster Hunter, and all the people are dressed in their Monster Hunter outfits, which I thought was awesome. Yeah, like the stuff that people are making, because obviously it's not. And for those who don't know, Monster Hunter is a game where you kill monsters and then you use their skin to make yourself armor and weapons so you can go fight more monsters which are more powerful than the one you kill. So obviously monsters aren't like large, some of them are large like versions of like actual creatures, and some of them are crazy dragons and stuff. So people being able to go out and make dragon scaled armor, and instead of having like regular like human armor, which would be all round and stuff, it's like made out of like dragon skin. It's really, really cool. Sorry, I've gone on a big tangent about one of my special interests, haven't I?
Yeah, it's alright. You're allowed to do that.
But again, my point being is that the attention to detail in the costumes in the remake were top notch, to the point where I can rant about how good costuming is, where you see other movies and you're just like, one of the only, God, that's awful.
One of the 2 Oscar nominations they got was for costume design.
Yeah,
and I understand why.
Yeah, they deserved the nomination. But it's more recent, like Game of Thrones did a really good job, and then the House of the Dragon, it looks like garbage.
Yeah, I think you know, with costume design, trying to make things that accurately work for a real time and place in history.
Yeah.
And then also have it be to some degree incorporating these fantasy elements. Is, you know, it's a big ask, because obviously you have to do a lot of research into the kind of stuff that was worn.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen complaints about the original Mulan, not about the movie itself, but about promotional material where she's wearing, I haven't looked this up, so I can't remember. I think it's that she wears yellow in some of the promotional material, which in the era that it's set was a colour reserved for the Emperor, and therefore she should not have been wearing it.
Oh, interesting.
So people were like, what the hell are you doing putting it in? And she doesn't ever wear it in the film, but like people were upset about it. And it's, you know, the fact that there are people who know, you know, and the fact that these are real, it's a real time and a real place that this legend happened, or, you know, or is based in, that there will be people who will be pretty upset if you get things wrong about it. And so you've got to be, you know, as on point as possible, making these costumes, making them accurate to the period, to the place, to the materials that were available, to what was popular, to the colors that were used, to the, you know, the kinds of dyes that they had, things like that. And then, but then also realizing that you're making, you know, this film that's supposed to be a blockbuster. It's supposed to be on, you know, on big screens and seen by people around the world, and it has to look really appealing as well. It's quite a lot to consider with things like that. And I think that, you know, Lord of the Rings is a great example of that, because obviously it's not set in a specific, you know, time and place that's real, but it's based on a lot of specific times and, you know, eras and armies and things.
Yeah.
That they wanted to make it look like this could be real.
There was something I had a thought, and then it just walked away while you were still talking.
Yeah, that was me the whole time you were talking as well.
Fair enough. Costumes. I'm trying to just like backtrack in my brain and hit rewind on my thoughts, but I think it's gone.
Okay. Do you want me to move on more trivia?
Yeah.
We've got so much trivia.
Yeah.
We're just going to spend an hour talking about trivia.
Okay, I don't think I could last another hour.
Going back to something we were just talking about before you went on your rant, which is the fact that that costume that you were describing is basically how she reveals herself to the men as being a woman.
Yeah.
Or had you just remembered what you were going to say?
Yes, and I can hold it in my brain and wait until you finish with this trailer.
Yeah, so in the original movie, the 1998 animated movie, she gets injured in that battle, and it's when they're treating her injury they realize she's a woman.
Yeah.
In the 2020 remake, she gets injured in the battle, and then she takes off the armor and then reveals herself to them herself as a woman. She just owns who she is and tells them. In the Chinese legend that it's based upon.
You're going to say what I was going to say.
Well, am I?
Yeah. In the Ballad of Mulan.
Yes, she succeeds in deceiving them, and she never tells them she's a woman.
Spends over a decade fighting, and then returns home.
And then it's months after she's returned home, some of the soldiers come looking for her because they want to meet their brother in arms, and then are shocked to find out that she is actually a woman.
Yeah.
So you were going to say the same thing that I was going to say. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because that's sort of like after their first battle. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm actually a girl boss. Feminine power, and then save the emperor, save the day, save the cheerleader, save the world. But the originals, she just like fought for over a decade, and then just like came home and was just like, cool, back to being a lady, I guess. And everyone being like, hey, where's my brother? My brother that I shed blood, sweat, and tears with. Oh no, that's her lady over there.
Yeah.
What?
Related in terms of it being about cross-dressing, is that although the plot of the film is about a woman dressing as a man, most of the male cast of the animated film
end up dressing like women.
Well, are people who have dressed as women in other productions.
Oh, interesting.
So B.D. Wong was in I think Madame Butterfly, where he dressed as a woman. Harvey Fierstein was played what's her name? There's a character in Hairspray who famously is always played by a man, even though she's a woman. She's like the lead character's mother.
Oh, John Travolta.
So John Travolta plays her in the live action or in the film, whereas I think Harvey Fierstein played her on Broadway. Eddie Murphy in many films, and then there's a few other. The guy who plays Ling, the guy who plays her father, they all appeared either as women or as men who dress as women in other films and other productions. So I think that's funny. Also, Harvey Fierstein, one of the reasons we've mentioned before is in our previous cross-dressing episode, because he's in Mrs. Doubtfire. So I think that's funny. Here's one. Do you know how McDonald's used to have Szechuan sauce on their...
No, don't talk about the stupid Szechuan sauce thing.
Do you know why they had Szechuan sauce?
Racism?
No, it was a promotion for Mulan.
Yeah.
But that was the original. Because I know it's something.
Everybody who knows the meme knows that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Because it's
I know the meme, and I didn't know that.
It's mentioned in the stupid episode of Rick and Morty.
I haven't watched. I don't watch that because it's a terrible show.
Yeah.
And no one should watch it because it's really bad. So I just thought that was funny because that's a...
You've just annoyed dozens of people.
It's a whole meme thing. Okay, we'll go into this one because this is there's no actual fact here. It's just discussing something that you wanted to discuss anyway, which is that Shan Yu's eyes are black and his irises are yellow.
He has a familiar and pointy teeth.
And it is never mentioned in the film or in any official release. They never explain why he has black.
He's a demon.
Sclera.
He's a demon creature.
But the most, apparently that there's a deleted scene where he's able to magically see through the eyes of his pet falcon. So there's like...
So it's a walk.
Yeah, there's theories around that, and that's what it is. But people also have looked into theories that are more realistic. Like there are apparently diseases that can cause discoloration of the sclera and iris, and also there is an elective procedural process called scleral tattooing, where you can inject tattoo ink into the whites of your eyes.
Yeah, and it was like made popular by people in jail recently.
Yeah, but there are some cultures where that is a cultural thing to do.
Okay.
Which does not include Mongolia or the Huns.
Yeah.
So
my point is he's literally got superpower. In the original movie, he's like superhuman, has a hawk familiar or a falcon familiar.
Yeah.
Has like sharp, like canine teeth, and always seems to be appearing at night. Has the ability to disappear and reappear. The guy's a vampire, I'm telling you. Not the sparkly kind, the scary kind.
Can I talk about horses for a second?
Of course.
So Mulan's horse is a Fergana horse, which is a classical Chinese breed of horse.
Yeah.
And Shan Yu's horse is a Mongolian horse, so it's a small but very strong horse breed. There you go. Also, Khan is a black horse, which is representative of yin, which is feminine, and Li Shang's horse is white, which is male yang. So they're yin and yang. Yeah. They're horses. Cute. Sweet.
Adorable.
Also, this movie was largely made because the Disney animators wanted to get the support of the Chinese government, but that's not shocking. Because apparently Disney had funded a movie called Kundun, which I don't know anything about, but apparently China hated Disney after it. So they were like, and that was in 1997, so this is like the year later.
The apology.
Yeah, so Mulan is an apology for some movie that made the Chinese government mad.
I'll tell you what's really bizarre. What? Do you know about the sequence in Iron Man?
Which sequence in Iron Man? So I know they cut things out of Chinese.
In Iron Man 2, there's...
Oh, they added a sequence.
There's a whole conversation that Tony Stark has with this Chinese inventor, equivalent of because there's him meeting Elon Musk, I think's in there as well. But it's no one knew he was crazy. And...
Yeah, we did. We all did.
And... Yeah, and apparently in the Chinese version of Iron Man 2, they have a 20-minute long conversation that's part of the plot of the movie. It's super weird.
It's Disney again.
Yeah,
it's Disney being just weird.
It's
Disney, stop.
I can understand it. Mm-hmm. I can understand it from a business point of view, because it makes a lot of sense when you're doing it from a business point of view.
Yeah.
To appeal to a market that is not getting...
Yeah.
Because your movies are going to end up... If you're making movies...
What's ironic is I think the Kung Fu Panda movies have been better received in China than either of these Mulan movies.
Yeah, because they're awesome. And even I can say that. Is there another one coming? Is that what
Kung Fu Panda?
Is there another Kung Fu Panda movie coming?
Maybe. No. I think there might be. That's exciting. I like the Kung Fu Panda movies. This is... Oh, yeah. I included this fact because like I said, one of my favourite moments in the movie is... in the original is where they just stop singing mid-sentence.
April, baby.
April for New Kung Fu Panda?
Yeah.
Ooh, exciting. Anyway, yeah, so the music stops mid-sentence and then they don't have any more singing for the rest of the movie. It turns out it's not just the movie, because Mulan was the last Disney animated feature film to contain musical numbers, until The Princess and the Frog in 2009. So they went over a decade with no singing in movies after Mulan, which is crazy to me, because so much classic Disney is they're all musicals. Yeah. They're all musicals, pretty much, most of them. Except for maybe the Rescuers movies. The Black Cauldron, I think, not a musical. Well, anyway, the majority are musicals. And then they just went a decade without doing any musicals.
Was that a choice?
Yeah, apparently. I think so. It was because of a rise in popularity of action films. So Disney just and then Mulan got some negative feedback, so Disney were like, "Cool, we just won't do musicals for a while."
That's dumb. It's a dumb decision. But again, they're a business.
But then again, I
don't care about you.
I do also really enjoy some of the movies that came out in that time.
Yeah.
You know, Atlantis. I don't know, the Emperor's New Groove does have. I guess Brother Bear, Emperor's New Groove mostly have like songs happening that aren't necessarily being sung by characters. You know what I mean? But like, you know, Treasure Planet as well is like that. Meet the Robinsons is an underrated Disney movie in my opinion. So those all came out in that period. So I don't know. What else was in here? Because I kind of skipped back and forth in this.
I'm sorry, it's my fault.
No, it's all right. It's fine.
So I'm just getting really warm in here.
Oh yeah, this was a oh no, he's talking about it again. This is the one that I thought was interesting because it was something I hadn't noticed before, which is in Honor to Us All, the song I sing at the beginning when she's getting ready to go to the matchmaker and stuff. One of the lines is, "A girl can bring her family great honor in one way, by striking a good match," which obviously is in reference to, you know, getting married. But both of Mulan's victories involve lighting a fuse and setting fireworks off. So she brings honor to her family by striking a good match. I mean, in fairness, she actually uses Mushu in both cases. But
I point out that the death sequence for the main bad guy in the original movie is way more brutal than it is in the sequel, the remake. Yeah.
Because she traps him. Also, the martial arts that she does with the fan is a real martial art, which is cool. But yeah, so she disarms him and then uses his own sword to pin him to the roof, and he doesn't know what's going on, and then launches a firework at him so he can't dodge it, and shoots him into an
entire tower filled with more fireworks.
And just explodes him.
Yeah. Versus in the remake, he tries to catch an arrow, like they're doing all through the movie. People are just like catching arrows left, right, and centre. Yeah. And he's too injured and misses it. Yep. I thought it was I think it was a really missed opportunity in that scene. Just a little bit of like my personal feelings. Because you have this lead up, and spoilers obviously, he lands on the ground and you think he's out for the count and like the heroes have won, and Mulan unties Jet Li's hand and he like on the ground fires a bolt out of an arrow out of his short bow, his hunting bow, the Mongolian style, and Jet Li, because his hand's untied, is able to grab it, and then like without talking or discussing the fact that she was able to do this, just like chucks it in the air for Mulan to like wushu kick it into him. Which I thought was really crazy, but that's not the bit I'm talking about. It's just like, hey, can you even do this? I don't know, let's just, the one weapon we've got from a guy who's now, like, further away from us, and she just, like, fly kicks it into... But the thing that I would have liked to have seen, which would have been way better, in my opinion, is if the audience is shown the illusion that he also caught the arrow. So he like literally shows it in his hand. Yeah. And then the camera pans out and it's in his chest as well as in his hand. Right. Because obviously when Jet Li and the other characters do it through the movie, it's like they catch it quite near the tip. Yeah. So I would have liked like a moment of like he also caught it. But he caught it too far back. And then you zoom out and it's like the fletching, which is the feather part for those who don't know about arrows. is like really close to his hand.
I thought you were going to say aerobiology for a second there, and then I was like, that's not accurate.
Yeah.
So that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool sequence.
Thank you.
I like that. Let's put that in the movie.
Okay.
Disney. Hey, Disney, can you just rehash this one bit of the movie?
What would happen is if you actually rang Disney, they would then backtrack you to where you would, and then lawyers would be knocking on a door within like 30 seconds of the call being connected. But anyway.
Okay.
The lawyers will get you, folks.
Yeah, so on to trivia about the remake, because that was all just in my original trivia. So in the original, in the montage sequence where she's getting ready to go to war, she cuts off a bunch of her hair.
Which makes sense, yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and that's why it doesn't happen in the sequel, or in the remake, I mean, because it's quite common for men in China to, or at the time quite common for men in China to have long hair.
Yeah. So
there's no reason for it, because she even like ties it up in a bun. Like there was no reason for her to cut her hair. Yeah. She could have just had long hair and been a man. So in the remake they just don't do that because they consider it to be redundant, because she can just have long hair because it was very common in Imperial China. They also changed who the invaders are, because in the original they're Huns, who did not exist in the time period that it takes place.
Just because it's fictional.
Yeah. So they replaced them with the Ruran. Is that how it's pronounced? Ruran?
Yeah.
Who lived in the time and place of the original story, because it makes more sense. What?
So... As men think about the Roman Empire, there is also the concept of the Mongolian Empire and why it is so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's interesting is because of diet. And diet is the reason they were so effective against China. They lived and died by their horses. Most people had more than one. You needed more than one. They were able to basically eat cheese, and that was the reason they were so successful on the battlefield. This is like, for people who don't understand what I'm talking about, this is like coming out of completely no. You look confused.
No, it's because lactose intolerance is in
huge.
Yeah, really in abundance in Eastern Asia.
Yeah. So the reason, because cheese does not... The way they were making cheese from horse milk was stopping them from getting... It was basically breaking down the lactose into sugar.
Yeah.
And so it was digestible. Mm-hmm. So the reason that they had to build a wall to stop like the invasions coming was because they weren't able to move armies as effectively and quickly that they were being attacked. So that's why the Great Wall of China exists, because the armies crawl on their bellies, is the old saying. So, and when you think about, like, if you had, we'll make this easy and put around numbers. If you have 1,000 troops, like 1,000 people you deploy to go and fight somebody, you need 3 times that much for just logistics. Mm-hmm. So for every soldier, you need somebody who's going to do all the other stuff that they can't do, including transporting food places. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about like trying to protect a border of a massive country from hit and run tactics of people who are literally living and dying on horseback, they were better archers, they had better bows, they had more maneuverability through areas of terrain. They also carried their food with them because they could produce it. And then you're thinking about, like, what does Mulan eat in the beginning? Is she's eating porridge in the live action with bacon and eggs, which I thought was really weird in a smiley face. But anyway. So, like, going back to the Rome thing, half your job as a Roman legionnaire was just getting food for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, the other half was, like, marching to places and fighting. And the other half was literally making sure you had... Because you weren't given, like, flour. You were given just whole grain... Like, here's your grain budget for the month. Like, here's what you're getting paid in. And, like, human beings can't just, like...
Eat grain.
So you have to then have somebody carrying around a mill,
Yeah.
and then sit there for literal hours, like, grinding your own thing down.
Yeah.
So if you're literally carrying pouches around, which I think, like, don't quote me on this, probably Google would have helped me at this point. Again, I'm in one of those little weird special interest areas in my brain. Because, you know, the concept of how food relates to warfare is absolutely fascinating to me.
That's why you watched all those MLE videos.
MLE?
No, is that what they're called? I've just made up a thing. What are they called?
Tasting history?
No, the things where they
Oh, MRE.
MRE.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you say?
MLE, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
MLE.
The things where they eat the stuff that they had in war.
Yeah. MRE videos to me are so fascinating.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's connected to this interest.
Yeah.
Tasting history also is great though. Shout out to Tasting History.
Yeah. Where was I going? Yeah, so I think they were like inside. I think they were like the milk was left inside some animal product, like a stomach maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head. And that's what helped turn it into cheese, and the fact that it was going to be constantly getting churned because they were like on horseback the entire time.
Right.
So yeah, the difference between trying to get 10,000, 100,000 troops from one side of your country to the other side of the country, then relying on 10,000, 100,000 whatever people following them just to make sure that everything worked, versus an army of people who exclusively fought from range, going around, producing their own food wherever they went. That's why they were so effective, and that's why China was afraid of them, and that's why you get stories like this, because they were literally so threatening. And it did bug me in both these movies that it's never brought up, but then again, it's just one of my special interests.
Yeah, fair enough. On the note, just because you mentioned the Great Wall of China, I just say that I think that the guy at the beginning of the anime movie is, well, I know it became a meme, but I think he's like badass and underappreciated.
Yeah.
Because the Huns essentially scale the Great Wall and this guy is surrounded with none of his the other guys are gone because where he runs for help there's more Huns, and he single-handedly stands up to Shan Yu and lights the beacons to let people know that they're under attack.
Yeah.
When the idea was to stop that from happening. So that guy, he knows he's going to die, but he's like, no, the last thing I'm going to do is warn everyone else.
The beacon is lit, Gondor calls for aid.
Exactly, and he is fantastic and underappreciated. But yeah, also it's a meme. Now all of China knows you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think he's underappreciated. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so apparently they had over 1,000 candidates for the role in Mulan. So they were looking for someone who was Chinese or of Chinese descent, had skills in martial arts, could speak fluent English, and had the potential to be an international star. So that was their criteria, and that's how they ended up with Lady Jaffa. I think she was good in it.
Yeah.
I think she did a good job. Also, they gave her a sister in this adaptation.
Because she has a younger brother in the Ballad of Mulan.
Exactly. In the original story, she has and different versions of the story, she has multiple siblings, a brother and a sister.
Yeah.
And I think they still wanted to keep the impact from the original of it being that she's protecting her father, which way they haven't given her brother, though in the original they make a nod to that by having a dog called Little Brother, which is funny. But they thought it would add to have a broader emotional impact by make her sacrifice more impactful, that she's also caring for her sister as well as her parents.
Which I think was one of the good creative choices in the Hunger Games series, but that's completely unrelated.
Fair enough. The reason they got rid of Mushu is because he was not received well in China. And
it's also racist.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, there's a big controversy about any people of colour playing main characters. They spend majority of the Disney movie as animals. True. That has happened quite a lot, but I think mainly in the animated.
Yeah, they haven't adapted any yet, have they? Where they turn into.
Like what? Like Soul, or Princess and the Frog?
Like Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Brother Bear.
Yeah. Brother Bear in live action would be confusing as hell.
Yeah.
Because you just...
I love Brother Bear, though.
Because...
Well, it's like, I mean, there are live action, in quotes, Disney movies that people refer to as live action that are fully CGI.
Yeah.
I think it would be like that. I think they would have to have humans playing humans, like, live. But then all the bear stuff would just be CGI.
I think it would be too expensive.
I think it would be pretty expensive. I don't think it would be more expensive than movies they've already done.
Sorry, yeah, because in my mind you say CGI, in my mind I was still on the same track of, like, I wonder how much the bear from Revenant cost.
Right. I think it would be more along the lines of what they've done with Lion King.
Right.
But I think that you're right calling it too expensive, not because Disney don't have the money, but because they don't view Brother Bear as a property worth developing in that way. Anyway, I've already talked about that, so I can skip that. Apparently, one of the directors of the 90s Mulan was delighted when he heard that they were making changes and that it wasn't just going to be a scene for scene copy of their film.
That would have been bad.
Yeah. And then a lot of my notes here are about the production hell and stuff, so we can skip those. I want to talk about budget and box office for a second. They're almost inverse of each other, which is sad.
Which is that Mulan cost less and made more money.
So
which Mulan am I talking about? The animated one.
The animated Mulan, the budget was $90 million, and it made $389 million at box office.
Decent paycheck.
The budget of the live-action version...
was $300 million and made 90.
Close.
Oh no, the face you made.
So they officially have said the budget was $200 million. Previous accounts had said it was 290 to 300 million, and then the box office was 70 million.
But then that doesn't... See, this is a problem. This is a big problem.
It doesn't account for streaming.
It doesn't account for streaming.
But I would imagine that does account for...
the bullshit where
they made people pay extra specifically to watch that movie.
So it's... I want to talk about this because we've just recently cut our Disney Plus subscription. Every single year, folks, these keep going up.
Yeah.
The fact that these big streaming services like Amazon Prime is putting ads in, honestly, it gives a lot of, like, there's a joke about, welcome to Netflix, you've been greenlit, how can I help you? Or, of just, like, them just producing whatever, like, you just go to them with, like, a garbage and they'd make it back in the day. And the fact they're just churning out properties left, right, and centre because they've got so much money. The problem is the more people that have been giving you money, and it's the fact that, like, Netflix was the big thing, and now we're sort of getting these, everybody, like Max, Prime, Apple TV, Paramount. No one's going to pay several $100s per month to pay all of these friggin' different things.
Can I give a shout out to a streaming service?
Sure.
Dropout TV.
Never heard of it.
They're the people who do Actually.
Oh, okay.
Which we don't have at the moment. We watch their YouTube videos 2 years after they're released on their own streaming service. They recently, like, parodied Netflix by being like, hey, we've got new policies around account sharing. If you could go ahead and share your password with as many people as possible, that would be great. And then someone asked them if they had, like, somewhere that they could pay extra to give them more money, and they were like, we'd prefer if you gave that to a charity or to something else. And that's how it should be done, rather than, like, policing the people who are already paying for your service. Like, my parents, for example, have Netflix. They pay for Netflix. We use their Netflix, which is it's great because we get to use their Netflix. My brother and their husband, I almost said fiance, I forgot for a second that they got married to like a year and a half ago. They were using it and have been banned from, or it's been because of these like rules that have come in around password sharing. Even though, like, we were one family and we were sharing it under one household originally, they don't want you have to log in at the same location.
Yeah.
But it also means that if my parents are elsewhere, they can't use their own Netflix, when, like, it's their Netflix. They pay for it. They pay not an insignificant amount of money because they paid for enough that we could have 5 accounts on it, and up to 3 users using it at once because you pay, extra for that kind of shit. And now, like, they're repeatedly being locked out of their own Netflix account based on location, which is stupid, and it's just a way to alienate your own users.
Yeah, the point I was going to make is because of the fact that there are not thousands and being hyperbolic, but there are getting more and more of these independent streaming services, people are going to pirate your shit again. And Netflix stopped that for a while because everything was available, and if it wasn't, you were just in the wrong country, which is fair enough because of licensing issues. But the fact that there's now 10 streaming services and most people can't afford $200 a month. I'm thinking American because that's the only prices I know, international for products I don't pay for, Apple, blah, blah, blah. People are going to pirate again. And so the whole problem that we had in the beginning, which was people not getting paid for the work they're doing, just being impounded on because you people are being greedy bastards. Again. And what led us to people stopped, as soon as the internet came out, what did people start doing? What did Metallica get revolved around? Because people wanted to have music and not pay $30 for a friggin' CD back in
But it's also
90s.
like people buying music, and I'm not talking about like Spotify and shit. People buying music digitally. Or buying films digitally, who then get it removed from them because the service stops using it. And it's like, but I bought it. It's not like I'm renting it. I bought that from you. So if you buy things and don't own them,
Ubisoft.
Yeah, but if companies are making you pay for things and saying that you're buying them, but then you do not own them, what is the purpose of buying them?
Making the money.
Yeah, there's no purpose in terms of being a consumer for buying something if you don't get to own it. And I mean, we have a massive DVD Blu-ray collection, and that's stuff that we physically own and they can't take back from us. But this era where like so many things you're buying them and owning them digitally. And then the people that you've bought them from can just revoke them at any time. It makes no sense. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue on with it. I just had 2 more pieces of trivia that are related to each other, and this is why I went with the box office first. And that is that this is the first live-action remake of a Disney animated feature that has been directed by a woman.
Right.
Our friend Niki Caro from Wellington. And as a result of that and the budget, Mulan 2020 is the most expensive film ever to be directed by a woman.
Interesting.
So there you go, that's a fun fact. And I did double check that was up to date, and how I double checked that was up to date was I googled the budget for Barbie. Because I would have, in my mind, if I heard most expensive film to be directed by a woman, I would have gone, well, that's Barbie. No, it's Mulan.
She has not had a huge career either.
Yeah, I know. I was having a look because I was wondering what else she'd done, and Whale Rider is really the only one that I'd heard of. Even.
Oh look, The Mother released on Netflix last year.
I don't know.
It's Jennifer Lopez, not Jennifer Lawrence.
Because Jennifer Lawrence is in a movie called Mother.
Yeah.
Without the before.
Yeah.
So it's not that one. But yeah, so she's made a handful of films between 98 and now. But the most famous of which, by far, I think, is Whale Rider. Well, now is probably Mulan.
Yeah.
Mulan and then Whale Rider. But yeah, she hasn't done a whole lot of other things. But New Zealand female writer and director. She's written some of the other. I think
I'm glad
Whale Rider.
I'm glad because the whole theme is about women's empowerment. So
yeah, and I think there still were controversies around the fact that it's not a Chinese director.
Pick one battle, guys.
But yeah, I think it's still it still is an achievement in itself that it is a movie about female empowerment that is directed by a woman.
Well, I've already had my calls of action today in this episode. So thank you for listening to us ramble on about 2 movies that you may or may have not seen. Come back for the next episode. We'll do the exact same thing and then go through a back catalogue where we do the exact same thing.
Yay!
Don't
oh my god!
Don't downrate us because you haven't seen the movies. That's not fair. That's on you, buddy.
That's
That's on you, buddy.
It's only one. You're just remembering one person 2 years ago or 3 years ago who did that. Who was like,
I haven't seen these movies. 3 stars. What?
Yeah, 3 stars. I thought this was about Blade Runner. I haven't seen these ones. Your options are go watch them first if that's important to you, or don't listen to that episode, or else listen to it and realize that you haven't seen the films. And it's up to you what you want to do. We don't force you to listen to our episodes, but we do appreciate it when you do.
We would if we could.
And we do appreciate feedback.
I'm a big guy. I'm good with knots.
It's just that sometimes the feedback is you didn't do the movie I thought you were doing, and I don't understand that feedback because I say everywhere what the movies are.
I literally say it in the beginning of the episode.
You say at the beginning of the episode, it's in the show notes multiple times because I put it as the first line, and I also put details of both movies further down. When I post on social media, I not only mention the movies, I also put pictures from the movies. I don't know what more I can be doing to tell you what movies we're talking about. But in his defense, the title of that episode was based on the book that Blade Runner is based on.
For those people who don't do that, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone. We love you.
Catch you next time.
Goodbye.